members of the media, and to the people of Bermuda. Tomorrow, Friday, the 22nd of September, the House of Assembly will return for the first of 2 sittings that will close this session of the legislature. All government MPs look forward to returning to the House and continuing the vital work we do in the legislature on behalf of the people of Bermuda. These final 2 meetings, this one on Friday, which was delayed from last week's sitting, and next Friday, will culminate a productive session for the people of Bermuda, which began with a throne speech in November of 2022. That speech outlined our plans for advancing financial assistance reform, increasing the stock for affordable housing, establishing minimum wage, providing mortgage relief, continuing education reform, and more. We continue to deliver on our promises for the people of Bermuda. When we knock on doors in our constituencies or encounter Bermudians around the country, we want to ensure that you, the people, are clear on the work that your elected representatives do and how this work impacts you and your families. Today, I'm pleased to reflect on what the government has achieved during this parliamentary session and what the people of Bermuda can expect during the final 2 sittings of the House of Assembly. In November 2022, following the reading of the throne speech, the government ended the public health emergency, bringing an end to 32 months of regulations and allowing us to fully return to pre-COVID life. In February, we delivered the 2022-24 budget, which included significant measures to support workers and local business. We reduced payroll taxes for 86% of workers, and every local business received a tax cut, with some local businesses seeing their payroll tax liability decrease by as much as 43%. Self-employed farmers and fishermen were also exempted from employer payroll taxes. Workers making less than $132,000 annually are paying less payroll tax this year than they did last year. And since 2017, workers earning $48,000 have paid a combined $7,000 less in payroll tax. Yes, $7,000 more in the pockets of workers since this government took office. In May, we made strides in expanding employment opportunities with the Department of Workforce Development Summer Employment Program, increased the number of summer students from 130 places to 180 spaces, which align with our promise to provide more local training and career support for our young people. In June, we delivered a minimum wage for the first time in our country's history, providing a dignified wage for all workers and preventing exploitation. This has been a long-standing goal of the Progressive Labor Party, and this PLP government acted deliberately and diligently to make sure it was implemented for the workers of Bermuda. We continue to enhance social protections with amendments to financial assistance acts, introducing new awards for able-bodied recipients whose financial assistance awards have extinguished and setting clear time limits. We improved the system and support for recipients of financial assistance in obtaining gainful employment. All recipients must be registered with the Department of Workforce Development and attend 1 or more life skills programs. Personal employment plans are also required and outlines individuals' employment goals, action steps, and required resources and timelines to meet each objective. Additional amendments were made to the Schedule of Financial Assistance Regulations, which had not been updated since 2014. And these amendments increased benefits for over 2,000 recipients to better reflect cost of living in Bermuda and also to support mental health issues and transitional housing for persons who are experiencing homelessness. And it's important as a reminder to the public that 90% of persons that are on financial assistance are seniors or those that are disabled. And a vast majority of our spending goes to the most vulnerable inside of our community. Only a small amount of financial assistance goes to able-bodied, unemployed persons. And as I mentioned, those persons must now be on personal employment plans to make sure that they return back to the workforce. We expanded child daycare allowances to reach more families. The child daycare allowance now includes households with an income of up to $130,000, offering tiered allowances to better assist families, whereas before there was a hard cutoff. Under the One Bermuda Alliance government, this benefit was reduced. This change will better assist young families, providing relief from the cost of daycare. During the consultation with child care providers over child care regulations, the government was asked to provide tax relief to these businesses that are similar to those that are provided to educational institutions. The government listened and acted, and this is an example of the government listening to concerns and acting on those concerns, just as we've done many times over the last 6 years. In June, we also passed the Tourism Investment Amendment Act, which bolstered Bermuda's position as a premier destination for investment in attractions, restaurants, and hotels. And in an effort to support further job creations for Bermudians, we are sending a clear message to our entrepreneurs through this act. This is not just for hotels. This is for local attractions. This is for restaurants to ensure that the concessions that are there for large hotel developments are also there for our small entrepreneurs so that we can create additional experiences for our visitors to our shores. And it's also clear in this session that our government continues to honor and value our seniors, keeping our promise to increase pensions by the rate of inflation and a further 2.75% increase this year. These increases came into effect this month and reflect a $152 monthly increase in the basic contributory pension since 2017 and a $192 monthly increase for the maximum benefit during this period. Again, since 2017, we've kept our promise to increase pensions by the rate of inflation, and that represents maximum benefit and change of $192 a month for our seniors. Also, recently, the Minister of Economy and Labor released the Labor Force Survey, which showed a decrease in unemployment from 7.9% to 3.1%. The minister also reported that Bermuda's economy continues to expand and grew by 3.6% year over year in the first quarter of 2023. Tourism figures are increasing, consumer spending is increasing, business registrations have increased, employment income has increased 7.9% over 2022 figures. The opposition seems reluctant to admit that Bermuda's economy is moving in the right direction despite these positive statistics. Yet they highlighted how more Bermudians are employed today than during the pandemic. They also admit that employee income has improved, but they say that the government should not take any credit. The fact is that our economy is growing, more Bermudians are employed, unemployment is decreasing, more businesses are coming to our shores, and our tourism figures are improving. The government will not be deterred by a double-minded opposition that contradicts itself and offers no solutions. We will continue to foster an economic environment that supports further job growth and job creation. There is no doubt that the most eagerly awaited news is that of the start of the construction and renovation of the Fairmont Southampton. The vast majority of Bermudians recognize the importance of this project to tourism and Bermuda's overall economy. The global conditions that have made large hotel development challenging have not changed, but this project has survived, and all parties are engaged in a push towards final closing. As I've previously said, this redevelopment runs into the hundreds of millions of dollars and is incredibly complex and must be done right, even if it takes a little bit longer than we would all like. As we return back to the House of Assembly, we will continue to fulfill our promise to increase the stock of affordable housing that is available to our residents. This government understands the challenges that are being faced by Bermudians, young and not so young, looking for affordable housing options. Last week, I joined Minister Colonel Burt and opened 8 new affordable housing units at the former Harmony Club as part of our $15 million investment to expand affordable housing across the island. Tomorrow in the House of Assembly, the minister will make a further statement on housing, and the public should expect that there will be more affordable housing that will be open soon. We know that there is more work to be done, There is more work to be done with education reform, healthcare reform, and infrastructure. As the House returns tomorrow, unfortunately, I will not be in the House as I'll be traveling on government business due to the rescheduling. However, government ministers will share updates with the people of Bermuda on healthcare reform, on the progress of which is taking place on roadworks, on numerous measures which are being done to strengthen protections for workers in our workplace, work that is taking place to expand our economy and to modernize our intellectual property and trademark legislation to bring more business to Bermuda. Before I end, I'd like to take a moment to address some aspects of yesterday's protests. I listened carefully to what some of the spokespeople said, and it was instructive. I sensed their frustration, and having met with most of the groups that were represented there, I am familiar with the issues. But it cannot go unnoticed that even by their own admission, in many cases we have been meeting with and consulting on some of these issues for a while. The fact that many of them remain outstanding is precisely because the government is working to try to build consensus. We do not act without considering all of the implications for the majority of Bermuda, and not just for one group or another. This government has a responsibility to govern for all of Bermuda. The demands for better taxi service did not start with the government. It comes from customers. The number one complaint from our tourists is our transport. And if we do not fix that, there is no way that we'll be able to cope with further increases in visitors' numbers. Building consensus means that we listen to one another, attempt to understand different perspectives, and see what we can do to meet in the middle. It doesn't mean that we get our own way on everything that we want. It means we give somewhere where we can, and when we're concerned with people's livelihoods, we proceed with extra care and concern, because decisions made to appease the loudest may not always benefit the majority. As the government, it is vital that we continue to deliver on the policies that formed our election manifesto. That is what we have done, and that is what we will continue to do, making sure that we do it in the same way that we've done it over the last 6 years, with careful consultation to ensure that when things are implemented, they can be successful while enjoying broad support amongst the entire populace. That work will continue when we make it to the House of Assembly tomorrow, and ministers are looking forward to engaging in the debates on the issues, bringing forward legislation, introducing legislation that will advance our economy and our social welfare, and make sure that we continue the job of rebuilding Bermuda with Bermudians at heart. Before I take questions from members of the media, I just wanted to add something right quick. As members of the media will know from a press statement that went out earlier today, the government is experiencing some challenges with our IT systems. There has been an incident which is affecting not only the Bermuda government, but some other regional governments as well. Our initial indications is it's come from an external source, most likely from Russia, and we are working with agencies to make sure that we can identify any particular challenges and make sure that services are restored as quickly as possible. Thank you.
I invite the world event.
Hi, Fiona.
How
you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Not bad at all.
You touched on there the redevelopment of the firm in Southampton. As you say, most people are eagerly awaiting more news on that. The last update we heard from West End Properties was that they hoped to start redevelopment work at the hotel in September, and we're now on the 21st of September. Have you got any update on that?
Well, what I said in my comments stand. I know that they are feverishly working towards closing. I do know that things are close, but the timelines for construction are responsibility of the developer. The government continues to engage. The government has done the necessary actions of which it needs to do on its side insofar as the deal, but the deal is a very large deal. And as time goes on, the deal, of course, with time continues to expand. What we may see when the final figures are done, we're looking at a development where the total value is in excess of $450 million. So this is not something that is small. It's a large, complex, multi-party deal. We are getting very close to closing, but I don't want to, precipitate anything which may happen. And as we said, the developer is the ones who can best answer those particular questions. From our perspective, we continue to be engaged, and we are hopeful that this will be able to be kicked off very soon. Clearly, the timelines are critical for them, as they need to make sure they are open for the 2025 season, and so we expect that there will be news coming forward.
Very close to closing feels like a phrase I heard about 11 months ago.
Oh, trust me, I understand that.
Can you tell us if any inter-creditor agreement has been signed, or was a date for the signing of that document?
So what I can tell you is that I'm not that close in the technical details. The government has a very extensive legal team that is working on that, matters which have been updated in Parliament. I do know that some of the documents have been completed, and I did get that update before. As I said, it is a complex multi-party deal, but now I know that they are anxiously closing up the particular matters. There were challenges that did come up, as I'm sure the developer has alluded to, which did cause some particular delays. But right now, we're looking in a good space, and I am hopeful. But as I said, the developer will be the one who will be able to give you the most accurate picture on where that stands.
Sure. So we're looking in a good space, and the report that went to the Development Applications Board yesterday recommended that the Minister does not proceed with making a special development order on the proposal as presented. What's your reaction to that, and do you know what the DAB outcome was from yesterday's meeting?
So what I'll say is that the special development order process is a legal process. The government is making sure that we follow the legal process, and we will follow the law as it goes through the state. But I think, as I stated inside of my statement, and I think is which the entire public knows, that this project is supported by a vast majority of the country. The business community, the tourism community, our unions, our people, our workers, visitors, those, so it has broad support. Whatever happens in the DAB, the government will go ahead and take a look at that, and we will certainly determine our next steps. I'm not going to, presuppose what may or may not occur, but I think what's important to note is that the government has been committed to this. Unions are supportive, the business community is supportive, they want this to happen, and the government has a responsibility to ensure that we advance things for the betterment of the entire country. And there is no doubt that the starting of the construction of that hotel, the reopening of that hotel, the additional development and residential areas, and et cetera, that it will provide long-term into the future, provides jobs, provides income, and the key point to note is that the government is in a better financial position with that hotel open than it is with it closed. That is the key point, and that is why we find that it is incredibly important that we advance these issues.
The report that went to the DAB noted that in any event it's considered that, even the economic benefits do not outweigh the harm which would be caused by the proposed development. That's not your opinion then?
Again, this is a legal process that will follow. The minister who's responsible for planning, we must make sure we follow the legal process. So if there's any engagement or different thoughts from myself that is needed at some point in time, or the cabinet, that's when we'll get involved. But we have been very carefully following this legal process, as it is vital and important that we adhere to the law. We changed the STO law to make this matter more transparent. That is the process we've been going through. Clearly, the Royal Gazette has seen each and every submission. So for a person to say that it is a non-transparent process, as people have been accusing, clearly cannot be the case, as everything is clearly reported in public. So this process will continue, and will continue to follow the legal process. But that does not diminish the fact that this is a vital economic project for the country, something that was in our election manifesto, and something the government is determined to deliver.
Sure. We've heard some rumours or some suggestions that Starwood Capital, one of the main investors, was looking for more input, more financial input from Gencom/West End Properties, or that perhaps their involvement was at risk. Are you aware of that?
So what I can say is that the project itself is fully funded, and we're progressing to closing.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You spoke just now with regards to the issue with regards to the the network, the government's platforms, and it's apparently affected some other jurisdictions. Can you tell us a bit more? You mentioned Russia. Is it a security threat? Should we be concerned about details?
It's very early, and so I wanted to make sure that those are not part of my prepared remarks. I just got a briefing before. It is very early. As more information emerges, we'll be able to particularly share that information. They are currently dealing with the assessment of those particular matters, and I said, dealing with local partners, engaging all hands, overseas partners, and there may be a need to engage further to find out where this is the source. This is something that the government, I don't want to say has been expecting, but we've been anticipating. There's been certainly challenges we can note and understand, but we will, the minister who has responsibility for IDT, Minister Vance Campbell, will certainly be able to give an update later today as things become clearer. What we are focused on right now is to making sure that we identify any challenges. It does not, at this point in time, appear that any data has been taken, so that's at this point in time, but it does appear that systems are affected. We're trying to identify which systems are affected, which ones are not, so that we can return to servicing persons. So people at TCD, people at immigration, et cetera, can to get the government services which they rely on. So that work is ongoing, and I'm sure we'll have further briefings later.
Thank you. And any, can you tell us at all about overseas partners or overseas agencies that you're working with or intend to work with on this?
I can't speak to that right now. What I can speak to is that, as you recognize and understand, that the government IT is government IT, which is run by the Department of Information and Digital Technologies, but the Ministry of National Security handles cybersecurity issues more broadly. And so IDT has to report any breaches to the Ministry of National Security. The Ministry of National Security will be consulting with external. We do know at least one other country that has been affected, suspected on the same level of attack, but it remains to be seen. We do know there's other issues which are taking place, and people are just trying to identify whether it's widespread or not. But we are taking action. There's been significant investment that has been made recently to improve government security, recognizing and understanding that. We've been moving many items over to the cloud. Cloud services have not been affected, so there's some aspects here, so we're just continuing to work through that process, but we'll have more details later.
Sure, and just sorry, on that you mentioned attack, is that correct? This is an attack?
I mean, it remains to be seen, but clearly there is something external that has affected government services, and the initial indications is it's Russian-based.
And can you tell us which other countries have been affected?
We know now of other jurisdictions in the Caribbean. I will wait for the confirmation to come from the minister on those particular matters.
Sure. And just with regards to yesterday's demonstration, I think there were maybe one PLP MP, perhaps someone else was a candidate. We had a reporter there, and that was the only two PLP people that she immediately identified. Can you tell us maybe perhaps more members of the cabinet or more PLP MPs weren't there to listen to concerns, to hear those people that turned out yesterday at Kingdom Fields?
So, as the persons who spoke admitted, the government is in constant communication with those groups, whether it is the multiple meetings with West End, whether it is the continued ongoing consultation with the taxi industry, which we see, whether or not it is the work that continues on upgrading our farming infrastructure. We know that there is an integrated agriculture strategy that has been presented, that has been discussed with farmers, and we know that the constant dialogue which is taking place with members of the Fishermen Association of Bermuda. I mean, remember, the government worked to try to resolve those issues, and the membership rejected the executive's own MOU. That's not something that can be put on the government of Bermuda. If the government of Bermuda came to the table, tried to work out something, worked out an agreement with the FAB executive, and then their own members rejected something which came from them. We are going to continue to remain in dialogue, but the fact is, we are aware of the particular issues and will continue to work in that particular fashion.
And just lastly on that, would it be your perception then that the consultation, the talks, the dialogue is working, it's going somewhere, that you seem to suggest not?
Well, different persons and have different motivations. We know that we're in a political season. We know that persons who may be inside of certain organizations may be members of other political parties and may want to agitate around a by-election. I'm not going to, say yay, nay, or whichever way. What I can state is the facts. The facts are that this government engages in consultation and dialogue. In many cases and spaces, we've been accused of consulting too much. Persons are like, make a decision and go ahead with it. But these are complex issues. These are complex issues which have been going on for quite some time. And so we want to make sure that when we resolve them overall. Let me give you an example when we're speaking about the taxi industry. The taxi industry has come to the government asking for a rate increase. Okay, persons will, who use the taxi service will be aggrieved by a rate increase. And I think that it's only proper that with a rate increase, we also have an agreement to make sure that we can improve services in the country so that our number one complaint is not transportation. There are things that the industry wants. The government has told the industry to come back with proposals. Those proposals have come back, and I know that there's a team actively in the Ministry of Transport working on those. We can't do things all the time in a piecemeal fashion. And so what we want to make sure is that when we do matters that are to modernize our transportation industry, to ensure that our visitors and residents can have the same level of transport and comfort that they do in other jurisdictions to meet those expectations, there are going to be challenges when we make those changes. That is understood. That is the precise reason why a consultation paper was given that outlined all the various issues. That is the precise reason why they are engaged in discussions from the ministry with those various departments to come up with a plan that can work for the long term.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Questions from the broadcast.
Thanks for your how are you today?
Not too bad, Jasmine.
Good. Thanks for your statement earlier. Just circling back to the suspected cyber attack, possibly Russia. To your knowledge, has the island ever experienced anything to this extent?
I can't necessarily state. They're still assessing what the extent of these particular items are, and so they'll be able to state earlier. I mean, the fact is that government services have been affected, and the primary focus right now is to identify what is affected, what is not. Things are being put down under an abundance of caution just to make sure that there isn't anything that may be wider. But as we are able to make sure we bring back government services and our priorities, of course, the critical services that people rely on. If today is your day to relicense your vehicle, you want to make sure that you can relicense your vehicle through those items. So we're just making sure that we can follow, and our priority is to restore government services as quickly as possible.
And have staff been told to stand down at this stage, or are they still at their desks?
Oh, staff are still at their desks. Manual services are being provided where able to be done, and persons, are able to still work. And so there are things that are happening and taking place. I was just speaking to a minister, and I said, it would be a good day to, clear the desk. There's lots of things, there's lots of items that we may not have been able to review and get through and all the rest. So that's where we are right now. But as I said, the minister will be able to give a more detailed update later as we get clarity and make sure that we are giving the correct information. But I didn't want this press conference to go without sharing that so persons could be aware.
Of course. Thank you. Just circling back to yesterday's demonstration, so several aggrieved groups felt they're not being listened to by the government. However, despite the consultation periods, do you feel the party has lost votes or confidence from the electorate over these ongoing problems?
So what I would say is that any point, so I give a particular adage, and you've probably heard me say this before, Jasmine, that if 99% of people supported every decision the government made, after 100 decisions, people be upset at the government at least once. That's just the reality of governing. And so from the perspective of persons who, the easiest way to not have opposition is not to change anything. But that is not what we were elected to do. We recognize that there are challenges with our transportation system that we must fix. It is important that we have sustainable fisheries into the future and to make sure that we take advantage of our blue economy. Those are things that the government was elected to advance. And our primary matter was the issue of education reform. We have signature schools now. We have parish primary schools that are under construction. This is change. Anytime there is change, there are going to be persons who are impacted and affected by that change, and they will be disaffected. But the thing is that the government must make sure that we are delivering for what we believe is best for the majority of the population. And so, yes, there will be persons who may be aggrieved by some of the items in which the government does, while they're fully in support of others in which the government does. That is just the nature of governance. From our aspect, we are going to continue the consultation. We have a proud history of consultation, and the history has shown that consultation has led to changes in the outcome. We have to look at education reform, whereas there were the decisions on schools where after consultation, changes were made. We can look at many aspects where after consultation, changes are made. So I encourage persons to engage in that.
So there's some, you've heard this before, amongst the taxi groups who feel that there is a conflict of interest because of the direct business ties to Hitch. I wondered, had you ever considered parting ways with the company to avoid, minimize that conflict or the perception of it?
Great question, Jasmine, and thank you for that. I remember I was asked a similar question by Trevor, and I said the unfortunate reality is that taxi issues may have been solved if it wasn't. And it's a complex challenge. It is a complex challenge. So let me start by the facts. The first thing is that I am not a majority shareholder. I am one of founders who founded this company prior to me becoming a full-time politician, prior to me becoming opposition leader. The second thing is that when there are matters that are related to decisions that are made in this aspect, I am very careful to make sure that I am distancing myself, because the fact is that it is clear and obvious that, as declared in Parliament, as required, I do have an interest in a dispatching company. But here's the key point. There will be some persons who may be using that for whatever motive they may wish to. That doesn't change the fact, Jasmine, that transportation challenges in Bermuda is the #1 complaint of our visitors. And if we want our visitors and our residents to have a better experience, we must fix it. That is the statement. That is the place. Persons will say whatever they want. I got a picture yesterday that someone sent me of my new house being built in Tuckertown. I don't have one. People make a whole lot of things up. That is what it is. The reality is the government knows how to deal with conflicts. The Minister of Transport is running this particular project, and we understand the goal to ensure that our visitors and our residents have a better transportation experience. Whatever happens to my company or others will happen because of reforms that are done for the best interests of our visitors and others. No problem.
Members of the media, that concludes our press conference.
Thank you.